on the common link theory, hereinafter referred to as the CLT. The common link theory is CLT. A book based upon a doctoral dissertation submitted to the University of Mcgill, Montreal, Canada, in 2006 for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Introduction. The common link theory, invented by Joseph Schacht and widely accepted in modern scholarship, argues that Hadith authorities knowingly and purposefully place traditions in circulation with little care to support these Hadith with satisfactory isnads. G.H.A. Juynboll, Michael Cook and other Schachtians subsequently embraced and elaborated upon this theory. This dissertation challenges the accuracy of Schacht's founding theory. The first chapter traces and elucidates the formation of Schacht's CLT, demonstrating how it related to his other theories. The second chapter examines the responses to Schacht's theory, arguing that its proponents do no more than either expand upon it or apply it to other fields of Islamic studies. The third chapter employs a critical technique in examining the evidence cited by Schacht and Juynboll, which not only shows the theory's deficiency, but also confirms its flawed nature by the very evidence they use. Two other critical approaches are demonstrated in the fourth chapter. The first rests on an analysis of relevant terms and rules employed by muhaddiths, whereby offering a workable alternative to Schacht's faulty hypothesis. The second demonstrates the flaws of Schacht's methodology through a synthesis of multiple critiques developed here as well as by other scholars. The last chapter elucidates how Schacht's other theories would collapse as a result of the faultiness of the CLT, the common link theory. Because of the interconnectedness of Schacht's many theses about Hadith and Islamic law, the findings of this dissertation will not challenge the significant CLT in legal Hadith studies, but will perforce also perform and open the door for scholars to question other important theories held by Schacht and his followers with regard to the larger issues in Islamic legal history. Table of contents. Diagrams, transliteration, list of abbreviations, introduction. Chapter 1, the formation and development of the CLT. Chapter 2, on the interpretations of the CLT. The proponent's approach, the opponent's approach, Western critics, lost in translation, Arab critics. Chapter 3, examining the evidence of the CLT. Evidence presented by Schacht. Evidence presented by Juynboll. Chapter 4, traditionists' articulation of the CLT and Schacht's misconception of their scholarship. Traditions on the common link phenomenon. 1. The meaning of Sunnah. 2. The difference between sound and unsound Hadith. 3. The meaning of tafarrud. 4. Practical cases of tafarrud. Criticizing Schacht's interpretation of the common link phenomenon. 1. Unfamiliarity with Rijal works, biographical literature. 2. Misapprehending Mustalah al-Hadith, Hadith terminology. 3. Distinction between Matan and Isnad. 4. Flaws in Schacht's methodology, critical analysis gone awry. Chapter 5. Ramifications of Schacht's misconceptions. 1. The theory of backward growth of Isnad. 2. Family Isnad theory. 3. Dating the tradition. Conclusion. Appendices. Bibliography. Introduction. Regarded by many in the West as the father of Islamic legal studies, Joseph Schacht tried to demonstrate the weakness of Hadith transmission in his magnum opus, The Origins of Mohammedan Jurisprudence, by applying what he called the common link theory, the CLT. This idea, widely accepted in modern scholarship, argues that Hadith transmitters knowingly and purposefully placed traditions in circulation, despite the absence of satisfactory isnads. Subsequently, Juynboll, an important scholar of Islamic law and essentially a Schachtian, embraced and elaborated upon Schacht's CLT in his book Muslim Tradition. Juynboll wrote, "Now, it must be conceded first of all, in my opinion, the common link theory is a brilliant one. That it, however, never seemed to have caught on as an extensive scale is due to perhaps the fact that this theory did not receive the attention, elaboration, or simply the emphasis that a theory such as that seems to deserve. Not even at the hands of Schacht himself. That is why it may be more appropriate to illustrate in the following the common link theory with a few slightly more spectacular examples than had hitherto been tried. Notwithstanding this attention from Western scholars, traditional Muslim scholars of Hadith, muhaddiths, have long acknowledged the existence and debated the importance of a common link, as evidenced by works on most Hadith terminology. Specific terms are used to describe this concept, and it's called tafarrud, while the common link himself, the transmitter responsible for originally spreading the Hadith, is referred to as madar al-isnad, literally the central transmitter of the chain. Thus, the existence of a common link was not contested by muhaddiths, nor was it by any means Schacht's invention. Nevertheless, there is a stark disparity in the understanding of the role of the common link between Schacht and his followers on the one hand, and with the muhaddiths on the other. The disparity lies in their respective interpretations of the effects of this theory on the authority of isnads, and in their assessment of the persons identified as weak links, since they vary so widely. Muhaddiths admit that the common link was a root cause of numerous fictitious and spurious hadiths that were spread by dishonest transmitters, yet insist that the hadiths involving common links have been identified and sorted out, with the result that the sound ones were finally distinguished from those deemed unsound. Therefore, it would appear that the problem of the common link had long ago been settled by Muslims themselves. Schacht and Juynboll insist that the common link permeated all hadiths, and it was rooted in the practice of famous legal scholars, fuqaha, who purposefully circulated traditions which were needed to resolve legal issues. The positions of the Schachtians and muhaddiths are therefore fundamentally divergent, the latter being engaged in the task of rooting out counterfeit traditions by accepted means, whereas the former were prepared to accept the definition of all hadiths as traceable to a common link and, ipso facto, fraudulent. In this dissertation, I will argue against Schacht's and Juynboll's findings, which call for a total rejection of the hadith on the basis of the CLT. At the same time, I will show how a minority of scholars who have disagreed with Schacht's findings have adduced weak arguments, despite arriving at valid conclusions. The review of work of Schacht's opponents covers materials written in both English and Arabic, although most of the Arabic sources rely heavily on the written English. It is not my intention to argue against Schacht's thesis relating to Hadith and Islamic law in general, but since the CLT is central to Schacht's overall work, the broader implications of the problems affecting the common link theory will be apparent from my analysis. I contend that the common link phenomenon, as noted by the muhaddiths, is more in touch with the reality of Hadith literature than either Schacht or Juynboll. After analysing the relevant operative terms and the rules of the muhaddiths, I will attempt to identify the problems in Schacht's writings on the subject. Similarly, the scholarship that has been built upon this erroneous presupposition, mainly that of Juynboll, will be shown to be likewise problematic. To demonstrate that, I employ two critiques, one theoretical and the other empirical. The former involves an analysis of the basis, formation and development of the common link theory to indicate its flaws by different means: linguistic, terminological, historical and contextual, whereas the latter will require an investigation of the evidence employed by Schacht and Juynboll to support their interpretations of the common link. This investigation will verify the accuracy of their translations from the original Arabic sources, and will, more importantly, analyse recent published texts that were not accessible to Schacht and Juynboll while they were conducting their research. In proving the untenability of the CLT as proposed by Schacht and his followers, Schacht's related theories pertaining to Hadith will consequently be undermined, as there is a structural connection between the CLT and his other theories related to the formation of Islamic law, such as the silentio, the backward growth of isnad, which is exemplified by the family isnad, the theory related to the spread of isnads, the dating of traditions, and the meaning of the term sunnah. The interdependence of Schacht's theses would also mean that the collapse of his hadith theories, the credibility of his entire work on the origins of Islamic law will be rendered questionable. In other words, This dissertation will not only challenge one of the most significant theories in legal hadith studies, but will perforce also open the door for scholars to question other important theories held by Schacht and his followers with regard to larger issues in Islamic legal history. Such a challenge may be in the long run result in a remapping of the entire field of Islamic legal history.